Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to week 3 of the Over the Head podcast. This week, we're going to dive into the PLL 6s, which is starting up. We get professional lacrosse in February, which is something that we're really looking forward to talking about. Then we're going to dive into recapping week 2 of college lacrosse, and then giving you guys the games that are upcoming in week 3, the college game slate, and what's going on in the college scene. Scott, anything on your end you need to add?
UNC's back?
UNC is back, allegedly.
I think that's right.
I think that's allegedly.
Reports of their demise were early and unfounded.
So we'll see. Owen Duffy and Petramala, they might be 2 of the best attackmen in the country. We'll see. But good start against Michigan, right? Top 20 team coming to UNC, and that is the word on the street. UNC might be back, so we'll see. We talked about that obviously in week 1, and it'll be interesting to watch that unfold as the season continues.
So should we start with 6s? Going through just prepping a little bit for this. There's only so much to talk about here. I think the big news coming out of the kind of pre-6s week is some injuries. So Will Manny out for the Cannons, Schellenberger out for the Atlas, and Grant Ament out for the Archers. So obviously 3 really big names, 3 kind of really big, important players, goal scorers for all 3 of those teams. It's a huge bummer. I think Ament and Shelley, like you're looking at guys that are future of the league, maybe current and future type stars. So not great news there. How do you think it impacts the team? I mean, in 6s in general, like, is that massively changed the chances of any of these teams?
Obviously, losing players like Schellenberger and Ament is not going to help your roster very much. But I think, the difference in the PLL or the 6s rather than field and the difference between 6s and field lacrosse is obviously it's going to impact your roster a little bit more in the regular season. But I think, guys can step up and fill that void. But obviously Ament's a matchup problem. So is Schellenberger. I was actually looking forward to seeing Schellenberger compete in 6s. But yeah, like, who is Grant Ament's trainer? I know you played with him, but he seems to be injured like every preseason. Like right before we go into the regular season, he got hurt in camp, a hamstring injury. I think it was 2 years ago. But like, I don't know if he's training too much or he seems like he works hard. But like, maybe it's time to get a new trainer. I don't know. He seems to be hurt every PLL preseason. I don't know if you know anything about that. You did obviously were with him in the locker room, but I'd be interested to see what that looks like or who he's training with and how he's training.
Yeah. So Grant, I mean, I think he had 2 foot surgeries in college, maybe. So first thing, Kyle, we're not going to injury shame here. Okay, so but after saying we're not going to injury shame, I'm going to go on an injury shame. Most of the time, like, it's bad luck. I mean, so you mentioned it, Grant, without a doubt. Like, he works his ass off. One of the hardest workers, one of the guys that's like most committed frankly, of anybody I'd ever been around to being a pro lacrosse player and everything that goes into that. So I think there's some aspect of this that's bad luck, body composition, whatever you want to call it. I did one time have Grant down in Atlanta. Maybe this was my second to last season, and we were in the gym doing a workout together at kind of with my trainer, had done some speed and agility, and now we were lifting, and he was lifting super heavy. And like, my probably competitive nature was like, yo, dude, you should probably chill.
Yeah.
And then we got into like a little tiff. Like, he's like, no, like, I'm at my best when I'm lifting heavy, whatever. And I'm like, well, I haven't missed a game in 10 years, motherfucker. So maybe you should chill on lifting heavy and be healthy all the time. And so we got into this whole little spat. That's not to say I'm right, he's wrong, because that's probably not true. And look at what he's done the last 2 seasons. He's been, unbelievable, and he has been healthy when it's mattered most. So I think it's hard to criticize. But I think you're right. Like, it's a tough thing. Now, my other question, it says right calf injury. Look, I think winning 6s is really important. These guys are all super competitive. They want to win. At the same time, if you're dealing with like and I think this is kind of the same situation as Manny, right? Like, you're dealing with something that has the potential to linger into the summer. Maybe it's a little bit of a business decision. Like, I'm not going to go, because this is a grind. The 6s tournament, You're playing games every other day for a week straight. Maybe it's a decision to just say, I'm going to make sure I'm healthy going into the summer, right? And prioritize that. Which of these three injuries to you is the most impactful for their team when you look at Shelley, Grant, and Will?
I would, looking ahead, I would say for Will Manny, obviously he sat out all last season, got on the Cannons roster late. So I was actually looking forward to him getting back in the swing of things. Obviously he's a veteran. He knows how to play lacrosse, but I was actually looking forward to Will, getting his feet under him in sixes and then taking that into the, the regular PLL season. So I think, if I had to say who's it going to affect more in sixes, I would say the Archers for sure. I think them losing a Ment causes them some issues. Matchup wise, you don't have to worry about sliding to someone like that coming at you down the field in sixes. So yeah, I'd say a Ment and Schellenberger 1 and 2. The Atlas be 2 on that list. Schellenberger obviously brings a lot to that offense. He's their QB. Ment's arguably their QB. Obviously, he ran out of the midfield last year, but yeah, losing those two for sure, I think is going to hurt their rosters more.
Okay, so you're saying, so is it Grant or is it Schellenberger?
Grant, I would say the Archers for sure.
Okay, I agree. I think if you look at their roster, Mac O'Keefe more of a shooter. They've got, Matt Moore. Certainly he can dodge, but maybe a little bit more of a shooter. Like there's not as clear of a guy who behind Grant who's just going to consistently beat a short pole every single time. So I think that's the biggest hole. I think if you go up and you look at the Atlas roster, you see some of the same things, but you still have Costa, you still have Miles Jones, you have Dylan Malloy. Like there's more big name, really hard to guard with the short pole players. And then same with the Cannons. You're still looking at Asher Nolting, Vidaro, Campbell, Drenner. So to me, the Archers were the team where there's less clear, just pure offensive talent per se, especially with at least from a dodging perspective. And frankly, Grant right now probably playing at the highest level of that group for my money. I mean, you saw it last year with the switch to midi. Tom draws the long pole. He takes a shorty and he just dominates. I mean, you just can't cover him with a short pole, his ability to score and feed. So I think he is really good in this sixes format and was going to be a problem. So that's a bummer. Anything else? So as you think, I mean, obviously we get through the injury news. As you think about sixes, we're recording on Monday. I think the first sixes game is tomorrow on Tuesday. What are your keys? I know we talked about, hey, who do we like? Who don't we like? We talked about kind of offensive acumen being really important in this game. What's kind of the X factor to winning this thing? What are your final thoughts going into the sixes week?
Yeah, I think coaching. I think the Cannons having Brody, obviously he coached sixes, Team Canada, and he brings obviously another aspect, toughness to that Cannons. I mean, you played with him in Boston and know how he is in the locker room. So do I, playing indoor with him. So yeah, I think Brody brings a little bit of an X factor to the Cannons. Obviously Tony Resch played indoor, coached indoor for a while. He also brings that X factor to the Archers as well. I think coaching's huge in this thing, especially coming down the stretch to the final games leading into the championship. I'd like to hear your take on, do you get a sense some of these guys care a little bit less about sixes than they do the PLL regular season? I don't want to say they don't care, but I do get a sense of it's sixes. But I don't know if that plays a part in it at all.
Neither of us ever. You didn't ever play in this, right?
No, I never did.
Me neither. So they're all competitive. When the game starts, everybody cares.
Yeah.
It's tough. So $15,000 is what the players make if the team wins for essentially 6 days of work. That ain't bad, and it's a big difference between $5,000 and $15,000. $5,000 what they make if they're not the team that wins. Again, we're not talking millions, but that's a good bar tab. You're one of these young bucks, and you have a chance to make an extra $10K just by winning 2 more games. I do think it's a big enough gap there for that to be a motivating factor, but it's not a established enough part of the sport yet to say is this as meaningful as winning in the summer? I mean, it's not. I think that's kind of black and white. But I do think it's important. I do think the guys that are in it will buy in. I also think a lot of guys are positioning for Olympic roster. I mean, a lot of these younger guys, so demonstrating, your ability to play this style, ultimately to get to participate in the Olympics in whatever that is, 3 years in LA. I think that could be motivating as well. So I do think you see a lot of intensity. I think that's my X factor though, Kyle, is like you mentioned coaching. What team is just going to play the fucking hardest? And that's where, to me, last year the Cannons took it. They just, they caused all the drama with the big hits and this and that, but they were like, fuck it. We're going fucking hard. We're playing physical. We're playing to win. Like, you could see that personality in their team. And I do think that's a really important part of it. And I think whichever team comes out with that sort of mentality when you get to day 5, day 6 of this and you're tired and everybody's beat up, like that could be the thing that carries you over the hump. I think it's important.
Yeah. And last thing I'll say is the last thing I had written down is the goaltending. Obviously, Kirst and Entenmann are my 2 top goalies in this. Yep. Entenmann can change a game, so can Kirst. So that'll be interesting to watch down the stretch. How about your boy Jack Runkle? Did you play with him at Loyola? He's on
Jack Runkle. Let's go.
On
yes, the 2012 national champion goalie Jack Runkle.
There you go.
Crazy to see. I know he trains with a lot of these guys in the New York City area. Tom in particular takes a lot of shots. It's wild to see, a player like him get a chance after many years kind of away from pro lacrosse. But I think he's a style of goalie, fills up the cage. You're going to see a high volume of shots. Like, streaky big goalies, I think are a really important part of this. And I think maybe, to your point, the most important part of sixes to some extent is just your goalie. And, it'll be interesting to see how all these coaches use them. Do you save kind of your top guy? I think you probably should in some of the early games to make sure they're not just getting, battered down over the first few games. And you probably want those guys feeling in rhythm, but still feeling like healthy and energetic going into the playoffs. So it'll be interesting to see how these teams kind of use both goalies in the early games, ultimately just setting themselves up for the playoff run.
Last thing, who you taking first game? Whip Snakes, Atlas. I think
So when I went
1.5, 1.5.
When I went and dove back into these rosters, I feel like maybe I underestimated the Whip Snakes a little bit. We talked about the Cannons and the Archers looking like the favorites on paper. The Whip Snakes were in this last year. I think having experience in sixes is important for the coaches. The coaches can, once you've coached in it once, you can kind of figure out what type of roster you want. Ryan Conrad and Brad Smith have to be the top of the list for a USA Olympics team. Again, the type of guys that truly can play both offense and defense have the endurance, right, to run up and down the field. Colin Heacock played with Team USA. I think all 3 of those guys played together down in Birmingham for Team USA on sixes. So you got 3 guys there who have high-level sixes experience and have played together. And then you add TJ Malone, like we're talking about Grant. TJ's demonstrated himself to be that sort of just kind of elite offensive of player. So that's a team that I think I like. So I'm going to pick them in this first game. But again, 4 teams, everybody makes the playoffs. These first games you're feeling each other out to some extent, and you're finding rhythm. So it's hard to pick. If I were betting on stuff in sixes, I would be betting on the playoff games. I'd have a hard time feeling confident to bet on these early games, especially because you don't know who's going to be in cage. Like I've never heard of JC Higginbotham. Like, if is he in cage or Liam Entenmann? And if I'm betting,
JC Higginbotham, I coached him my first high school coaching gig in Plano West. He was the goalie for my high school team, and then he went to Bellarmine after that, and he's been trying to get in the PLL. So
he probably has no lacrosse IQ then.
Yeah, I mean, I taught him everything, so that's probably why he's in the PLL right now. So that's that is what it is. But yeah, fun fact, I coached him in high school long time ago. So
that is cool. Yeah. That is cool. You're old. But that is cool. Well, again, no hate to Higginbotham. My point is, I don't know if they have lines on these early games, but I'd have a hard time betting just because of the unknown of like how coaches are going to roll out their rosters. I would wait till the playoffs, and then I would be making my bets on the playoff games.
If you want to bet, Whip Snakes are -1.5. Just take Whip Snakes money line.
Did you see, Hartsey, that they asked Jim Stagnita? I saw on social media somewhere, you might have sent it to me, that they asked him what his nickname was back in his playing days, and he said his nickname was Stud. Do you have any thoughts or analysis on that?
Yeah, that's an absolute mess that you're. And it was like the camera, Mitchell Pelkey came right over to him and he was like, "Hey, what was your nickname?" He was like, "Stud." It just came. He didn't have to think. It was just like, it was something that he, I don't know, may have been thinking about, or maybe overheard Harrison getting asked what his nickname was and knew it was coming, and just like, what was my nickname back in the day? I think it was Stud. Yeah, that's a really, really tough self-proclaimed nickname. I'd like to know if his teammates called him that, or he just was like, my nickname is the Stud.
I low key, you got to be on Whip Snake's championship watch here.
Yeah,
I think if Stags is feeling himself, I'm putting the puzzle pieces together that they got all these dudes who played sixes together. Coach is calling himself Stud. Yeah, like I want to hate on it, I do, but I can't. I actually think Whips might be dangerous. If Stags is feeling himself like that, Whips might be dangerous. That's my takeaway.
yeah, could be. Tough nickname, but yeah, man, he's feeling himself. Watch out for the Whip Snakes in the
wild answer to that question for sure. All right, so let's get into some college lacrosse here. I think there's, as we get into the season, both looking back at week 2 and definitely looking ahead to week 3, there's more and more to cover. So excited to kind of jump into this. You proclaimed Hop Towson was the game of the week last week, and it delivered. Great 1-goal game. Hopkins comes out. Then they also go on and win comfortably against Georgetown on Saturday. So we can bounce around. Let's go through kind of the slate. We mentioned UNC Michigan. We'll get into that. With Hopkins, though, 3-0 now with wins over Denver, Towson, and Georgetown. How high are you on the Blue Jays?
Yeah, I mean, their offense is, I think we mentioned this after week 1 when they played Denver, but their offense is clicking. The Chavec kid, I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but there was a moment, I think Towson's sideline may have been chirping him because he was missing the cage. Goalie had caught one, and then you kind of heard the sideline, gumball, talking shit to him. And then he hit the go-ahead goal, and he looked to the sideline and kind of waved to him, talking shit. So I like that kid. I like that kid's swagger. He's every week he seems to find the back of the net on a consistent basis. There was one he cut through the middle. I think Georgetown defenseman checked down on a stick. He handled it, turned around, and load a high right under the bar. He's very good. Melendez, 5 goals, 5 assists, and he's a stud. And then 16 caused turnovers by their defense. So Jameson Kester, the defensive coordinator, they're a slide-heavy team, and you've seen that week to week.
Would you like to apologize?
I can not really. I want to let it go a couple more weeks, and then maybe I'll apologize. We'll see. I think they got Loyola this week, correct?
Yeah, I think that's right. I haven't seen this, but I hear that the Melendez kid's big Instagram guy or big social media guy. Do you know anything about that?
I do not.
Reports are that he's, that the kids are that he's swaggy. The kids are into him. He's got cool gear. He's got good online presence. I wouldn't know. It's concerning to me, though. We talked a little bit about how tough are they. All jokes aside, it's impressive. I remember sitting talking to you before our first week, saying if Hopkins is 3-0 at the end of this little run, you gotta give them, their due. To escape, it doesn't surprise me that they beat Georgetown so comfortably. When you escape a Tuesday night Baltimore matchup against Towson, the Hopkins players are probably at Green Turtle Towson after that game, running around feeling like they're the kings of Baltimore. I know that's a good feeling. It's almost like a little bit of a weight off. We survived the scare, and now we get, now we're just going to go roll over Georgetown, which they did. So they're legit. One of the questions or one of the concerns is when you get later into May, do you have the guys, Melendez, the guy? Is he a Tewarton level, stud? I think most of the time typically you like to have that if you're going to make a deep run, but they're, again, I'd say so far in the season, the toughest schedule to be 3-0 coming out of those 3 games is a big win for them. The other kind of big game that we highlighted, North Carolina, Michigan, UNC rolls 15-6. I make the joke at the beginning. I mean, I think it's a popular take in lacrosse, UNC, what the hell is going on? They get all the big recruits, they suck, but that's a convincing win. And the kid Owen Duffy is really fucking good.
For real, yeah. And like even Don, like Petramala, the lefty, 4 goals, 1 assist. Those two are, they're very good players, and I think they're going to be two of the best attackmen to watch coming, as the season goes further and further. But Ty English, 2 goals out of the midfield. That's something I'm a little worried about. He had a lackluster performance back in 2023. They're going to need some guys to step up on the offense. And I think the biggest pickup for UNC was the Princeton transfer, Michael Gianfrancaro. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. He was on the Torton watch list last year. He was great in between the pipes for them. So having him transfer in, veteran goalie, is going to be huge in between the pipes. But yeah, UNC looked good against Michigan. And you touched on this. Michigan has kind of established themselves as like a program that's here to stay. They've been, in the thick of things. So that's a huge win for UNC.
This is like what I'm a victim of the moment, for sure. And I am in my group text, on Saturday, like, all right, the Final Four is going to be Hopkins, UNC, Syracuse, and then pick your 4th team. Like, I'm
baiting,
just
you like
all
baiting
these
people
teams.
though too. You're just like baiting people, just like
but like, I mean, so it's not going to be that.
No,
like they all can't be back. So one of them has to be a fraud. I don't know who. But I do think it's great for lacrosse, if these teams get competitive again. I do think like the name Petramala brings a little bit of toughness to that UNC roster in general.
Every goal he scores, man, he is just like fist pumped. His stick fell out of his hand. He just left his stick behind him. He's like through the middle of the defense, just like fist pumping, and yeah. So
I like that. You need to have it. You need to see it. And the historically the thing with UNC is always like they score a bunch of goals. Can they get stops? Again, you've got a great goalie in there now. It'll be interesting. I think they could be dangerous. I think I just said it about Hopkins. Like I think with Owen Duffy, you've got, not only a finalist for that, Torton award, but like maybe one of the front runners if he can kind of keep it up. I think he's just so legit. He does everything well. So I think they're going to be really fun to continue to watch and track and overreact and say that they're back. Like that's where I'm at with UNC. I thought another interesting game, my Hounds take Maryland to overtime. Terps survive. Loyola really, again, this is Loyola. So 19 freshmen on Loyola. So you're going to hear this probably a lot from me this year as I kind of come to grips with them maybe not having the season that we're used to. 19 freshmen is a lot, though. It's a very young team.
Bright future.
I think it's good for the to see them. They're basically winning the entire game, and then fourth quarter, Maryland goes on a little bit of a run, takes a lead. Loyola battles back, scores a goal with 3 seconds left to tie it and send it to overtime, and then first possession in overtime, Maryland ends it. Who does that game say more about? Is it watch out for Loyola, or is it for Maryland to be in that situation?
Yeah, I think obviously there's a huge crowd there. Loyola obviously draws well with the in-state battles. That was a little scary to watch. It was similar to that Richmond game that Maryland played back in 2024. I think it was their first game of the season last year. They won in overtime. That reminded me a little bit of that. Maryland, I think, only had 1 assisted goal. Spanos 4 goals, Urxa 1 goal, 1 assist, and Kelly Daniel 2 goals, and 10 saves from the number 1. I'd like to see the number 1 have maybe at the 15 mark. He's wearing number 1. I'd like to see a couple more saves there. But Loyola's defense, 11 caused turnovers. The D to LSM, the convert. Remy Reynolds, 5 caused turnovers. Like that kid.
Yeah, and he had a play, Hartsey, where he D-stick the kid, stick goes flying, he picks it up, goes the length of the field, shoots it from like 18, sidearm. Not a great shot, but goes in, and he's electric.
Yeah.
He made a big play in the first game against Georgetown too for an assist early. Remy Reynolds, it's a strong name.
Very
Remy
strong.
Reynolds,
And he wasn't on anyone's radar, I don't think, right? He wasn't on any preseason stuff.
No, not and again, when you're Loyola and you're finished in the middle of the Patriot League, like you're not going to have anybody on the preseason, All-American teams. Like that's just how it is. He is really good, and it's just Loyola's so well coached. Like Dwan and Toomey with the defense there, it's never going to be easy to beat them. I have concerns. I said it in the beginning of the season with Maryland. They were impressive versus Richmond. In that game, they still relied a lot on that defense. I mean, Eric Spanos, you mentioned 4 goals. He's a big, strong kid, really good player. I don't see who on their offense can break a defense down. Like he's solid. I think he does better off ball. He kind of dodges through approaches. You know, we kind of it seemed for a while like Braden Urksa, who I coached in Atlanta kid, is, you know, an awesome player, but like, was he going to kind of step into that number 1 type of guy, X guy? And now he's kind of on the wings and seems to be like an afterthought. You mentioned Daniel Kelly. He's a goal scorer, but again, he's kind of an off ball guy. Like, I don't see anybody on their offense that's just like consistently winning matchups. And we talked about I know they've got some young guys, some of those boys Latin kids. They're not on the field right now. You know, haven't seen Spencer Ford out there. So that's my concern for Maryland is offensively. Like, are they going to have enough firepower when it's time to play, you know, the Big Ten schedule? I think that's going to be a concern. Their goalie, their defense, obviously good. But again, Loyola didn't have a whole lot on offense. You look at the points returning, there's not a lot there.
Yeah, another thing I had written down was Loyola's, you know, they only won 6 of 19 faceoffs. So, like, if they win, like, you know, 3 or 4 more faceoffs, maybe they win that game, or maybe, you know, that's going to be an area of concern for them, the 6 of 19 in the draw department. We don't want to say faceoffs are going to win and lose you games. I know how much you love the faceoff. But yeah, 6 of 19 is not putting you in a great position to win a game, especially a game like that. But to come out of that, I think Loyola, they're just scrappy, man. You watch them play. I think they're always going to be in games. It's just like, is someone going to step up and win that game for you? So I think they'll always be in tight games this year. Like you said, well coached. But yeah, my point to take away from that is their defense, 11 college turnovers, and then the Remy Reynolds kid, their defense is solid. So
yeah. So touch a couple more games, and then I want to talk about, I think, probably the game of the week, which was Delaware against Utah. And I think there's some stuff to break down there. But Army looks really good against UMass. Like, you know, your bold outside of the top 10, number 11 Army pick for the Final Four, off to a good start. You know, it's never easy to go into UMass and win that game. Duke comes down to earth a little bit. Jacksonville plays them tough, 14-9. So again, retract to the mean probably for both teams to a certain extent there. But they do come away with a win. Virginia looks good, right, in the post Schellenberger era here. Colgate's not a bad team, and, you know, Virginia takes it to them 19-9. I know you're very high on Virginia's LSM. Ben Ware, I think he had 2 goals and an assist, bunch of ground balls.
9 ground balls, yeah.
He was a menace. That kid was all over the place. What do you have to say about your guy? But this is a pound sign Hartsey was right moment, correct?
Yeah, there's a pound sign. I'll take the pound sign. Hartsey was right on that. Yeah, UVA's debut. Obviously, we don't know what they were going to look like with the departure of Schellenberger and Cormier. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, the biggest question mark for UVA right now that I think is going to be just such an issue, looking at it from week 1, is like the goalie. Like, are we doing this again? Like, I think, you know, Kyle Morris, that was his first career start, and then Nunes comes back. They put him or leave him at halftime. So are they still having a tryout there? The Nunes kid obviously he was really good in games, but very streaky, right? He got pulled last year. So my question mark for UVA and their success is, I think, going to be the instability in between the pipes. Like, is Nunes going to be the starter? Is this Kyle Morris kid going to be the starter? Because it seems like they gave Kyle Morris the nod. Is Coach Tiffany trying to maybe challenge Nunes? Maybe that's going to get a spark under him, light a fire under his ass. I do not know. Truett Sutherland, 6 goals, 3 assists. Millen, 2 goals, 3 assists. I mean, the Truett Sutherland kid, I think he was injured last year. So
I was going to ask, what's his deal? Because he was he's a junior, I think, now, and he was the number 2 recruit in the country coming out of high school. I think coming out of Calvert Hall. Mm-hmm. All the talk was about McCabe, like Shelley leaves and McCabe, but maybe Truett was kind of the kid who was in waiting there a little bit.
Yeah. He was
9
injured.
points. Yeah. Hello.
He was injured, but yeah, I think that's actually a bonus for Millen. It takes a little weight off his shoulders. Seeing him, if I'm the guy, and I see my teammate scoring 9 points, I'm so happy for him, and I'm like, takes a little weight off your shoulders, makes you maybe play a little looser. So I think that's actually a positive, but. Yeah, the Ben Ware kid, I think he was on all media polls, second team.
Which you were rattled about.
I was a little rattled about.
Be clear. You you took that personally. Who was the first team guy on that list?
I think the first team guys was Notre Dame's poll, which he's good. He's good as well. I think he's well deserving of that. But if you look at Ware's stats last year, I mean, 13 points, 26 caused turnovers, 98 ground balls. He just has PLL written all over him, in my opinion. He's a big kid, 6'3", 215. I'm not going to say Michael Earhart because I don't think that's right to compare anyone to Michael Earhart. But
one time I had a recruit, this kid in Atlanta who played at my high school who he was getting recruited to Michigan. Coach Connery who coached Earhart at Maryland. And I made that mistake. I was like, I mean, he's kind of like Earhart because the kid was like 6'3", big kid, played LSM, was going offense. Yeah, he didn't ever see the field at Michigan in 4 years, and coaches never said anything to me about it. But I'm like, I probably need to stop comparing people to Earhart before I'm sure.
But like the Will Donovan kid at Notre Dame, he's good. He's a really great LSM, but he is not this Ben Ware kid. I mean, he threw a pass in the game. It was a full field pass down the field and hit Sutherland right in the stick. Sutherland buries it. I was just like, Jesus, this kid, he's good. I think he's the kid. I was reading one of the write-ups like in the offseason, I think in the fall when he came to the fall for fall ball, they're just raving about him, how good he looked. He worked his ass off in the offseason.
What's insane, dude? He hit 7 shots.
He hit 7 shots.
He took like that's a confident number of shots there.
Yeah.
But when you score twice, I mean, you're 2 for 7. A little under 30%. Now we'll take it.
Yeah, and like I think if you're a PLO GM, we have GMs now. I'm not sure. PLO GM head coach. I mean, he's on my list. If I'm coaching a team, if you need a LSM or you want a 1-2 punch, or he's I think he can play down low too. So I look out for this kid this year. Obviously, first game, but man, out of the gates, 9 GBs, 2 goals, 1 assist, 7 shots. That's
not bad.
That's an absolute. Yeah. Some teams
would like to see him get to 10 shots next week. So
10 shots next week.
So hey, do you know there's a guy named Johnny Hartzell on Colgate? Is that your
I do. I do. He came down here and we had Colgate. We hosted them at University of Texas for their practices, and we hosted a game down here for Middlebury. They played Middlebury, yeah. But yeah, he walked up to me. I think he, last name, are we related? No, I don't think we are. We figured that out. But yeah, I went out to dinner with Colgate, and I sat down with them and had dinner with him. But yeah, he's no relation. No relation.
Got on the score sheet though. So congrats, shout out Hartzell.
Awesome guy.
Okay, so the game of the week. So other scores, Marquette, congratulations. They scored 16. Whew, that was a little dicey there for a minute. Stony Brook, good win over Rutgers, 9-8. Denver, survives Air Force. Nothing else too crazy, I think, really to call out in week one's game. So let's talk about the end of Utah-Delaware. So you're a coach, Coach Kyle, watching this game, and I'll set the table here and would just love to hear your perspective on some of the decisions that Coach McMinn and Utah made ultimately that leads to the loss. So 2 minutes left in the game, Delaware scores to take a 12-11 lead. They go up to the face-off X. Utah calls a timeout and calls a stick check on Delaware's face-off guy. So let's start there. Okay. Fair or foul? Stick check at 2 minutes left in the game, 1-goal game, stick check on the face-off guy. Is that cool? Is that not cool? What do you think?
If it's on a face-off guy, it's cool. Anyone else on the field, you can't do that. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I think if you suspect something is, if you're like a coach and you're like, hey, that kid's stick is so damn illegal, or your face-off guy comes to the box, he's like, hey man, his face-off, that stick's got to be illegal. Like I know for a fact it's illegal. Then you trust your instincts, and I think it's fair. I don't see, like, are you going to sit there on the sideline and be like, I know that stick's illegal, but it's just like my ego. I'm just not going to call that. I'm just going to win another way. In my opinion, close game like that, I'm probably going to call that stick check if I know for a fact that that's it. I don't know what happened on the sideline, but I think if you suspect something, you don't let a kid cheat. You call it out. So, and I know the Maryland Ohio State thing with the gloves, that's a little touchy, but a stick check is, if it's illegal and you think so. I don't know.
I'm
What do you
here for
think?
all of it. If you're out there listening and your point of view is that it's Bush League or unfair to call stick check on a face-off guy, you are wrong.
Yep.
You're wrong. Like, use a legal stick or fix your fucking position so the sticks don't get so fucking mangled. Like, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way. I felt the same way about the gloves. I mean, we see this in the NFL. Bill Belichick gets praised, like, know the rules, take advantage of the rules. This is the highest level of competition. You're here to win the game. Like, I have absolutely no problem with the stick check on the face-off guy, holding it in your back pocket till that moment. It sucks. I get it. Like, face-offs do weird things to heads, but you just got to have a solution. I don't care if you got to use a different head every time you go out there for a face-off and use a fresh one. Like, with the way the rules are written, you need to be prepared to deal with the consequences of what face-offs does to the stick. So I got no problem. I don't know if people have that opinion. My just like assumption is that they do. I don't know if people on Twitter are getting mad about that or not. I think DeLuca was like kind of freaking out over on the sideline, but I don't know if he was freaking out at that or if he was just freaking out in general. But a huge moment. So
do you want me to call? Should we call Jerry Raganese right now and ask him, if we get his expertise?
No, we shouldn't. So 2 minutes left in the game, and now you get a 3-minute non-releasable. So Utah's man up the rest of the game at this point, and they are down by 1 goal. So they come back out after that. So they get the ball, too, in that scenario. You call the stick check. He fails. So Utah gets the ball, and they score a man up in 12 seconds. So now you're at 12-12 with 1:48 left in the game, and you're going back up to the face-off X. And presumably, I guess you have Delaware's backup face-off guy now taking the face-off, whatever. So Delaware wins that face-off and calls a timeout off of the face-off win. Out of the timeout, so 12-12, Utah's man up, 1:48 seconds. So what do you do? Take me inside that huddle if it's a Kyle Hartzell coach team. Tie game, you're man up on defense. There's 1:48 left in the game. So just to help with that, the shot clock
30, right?
will run out with about 26 seconds left.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. How are you handling that?
Yeah, that was an interesting decision. I was trying to find the highlights on the game or trying to watch the highlights, but
No, hold on. Don't tell me about their decision. What are you doing?
Oh, what am I doing? What am I doing?
Yeah. I'm just you saying to your team.
I am mirroring free slide in the middle. I'm not doubling the ball because you're getting the ball, like you said.
So explain what that means, mirroring.
So everybody's man-to-man. We're just man-to-man. We have a free slide in the middle. So I'm taking probably, putting everybody, all the close D guys on their attackman that they're just don't change any of the matchups. Then we're having a free guy in the middle. Just if he goes to the net, we can double team, we can slide, free show. But I am not doubling the ball. That's just not going to happen.
Okay. So to what you were getting into there. So Utah makes a different decision. They come out and they decide to come out in a double team. So we're going to play aggressive, try to get the ball back with more time, take advantage of our man-up opportunities. They come out in a double. Delaware runs around the field for, 20, 30 seconds, something like that, avoids it, and then DeLuca another timeout. So now there's 1:20 left. Okay, the ball's behind the cage. Same scenario. It's still a tie game. The shot clock is still going to run out with about 26 seconds left. Utah is still man up. So I assume right here you're going to tell me the same thing again. Your point of view is we're not going to double. I'm just going to mirror and have a free slide. I'm with you, by the way. What I would probably do there is I'd have my LSM be the backer. So I because I get it. If you have a short, the mirror thing is not that different than a double. Somebody can still dodge and then they can slide and you can dodge a slide. You can still get scored on. I think if you have a long pole as your mirror guy there, so you have a long pole sliding the ball, preferably one of your better ones, I would like to use the LSM. That way, to your point, you keep the close D matchups, you keep their best dodgers covered by poles, and then you've got hopefully a smart, good LSM or defenseman as your mirror guy sliding. That's what I would be thinking there as well. They decide to double, which why is that a bad idea? So to jump to the end, what happens is the Delaware player splits the double and goes and scores. What the fuck's he thinking? Why double?
Yeah. I don't know. It's an aggressive decision. Again, I don't know McMinn personally. I don't know if they work on. I mean, you have to be working on that a ton in practice. I mean, and absolutely, you got to be repping that every day to make that call. You better be repping that every day because when you go, to double, just the circumstances, like it's just a no for me. Like it's a tie game. Obviously, if they're down a goal, they need to do it. That is what it is. But like you said, you get with the shot clock. There's a 20-second difference. You're going to get the ball back, and then you can go down the other. You can go down the other end and run your man up. Like,
and so the reason I think the double is such a bad idea is like with sticks these days, right? And sticks these days, but it's true. It's hard to dislodge the ball.
Yeah.
And when you're in an aggressive double team, the chances of you getting split, and then ideally, most likely, if you're in a double, everybody else is pressed out, so you have no semblance of team defense, help defense. You probably have the most athletic guy on their team with the ball, probably pulling the old Zed Williams and thumbing that thing.
So the first thing I actually did, Scott, I went to the highlight and looked at it, and there's actually a camera right behind him carrying the ball, and I stopped it and I zoomed in. He was not thumbing the ball. His hand was below the stick. That was the first thing I looked for. I'm like, he had to be thumbing the ball.
So, but he splits the double and he goes and scores, and there's no slide and there's no help, and it's just basically. So I assume what he's thinking is if they run it all the way down and they roll it in the corner with 26 seconds left, then we have to clear. By the time, and they're going to be organized in a ride. By the time we clear, we're down to like 12 seconds. And I haven't really given you're man up. And you just scored a goal in 12 seconds on man up.
Yeah.
So even in the worst case scenario, if you just let them run out the clock, you're still going to have either man up, chance to score, 12 seconds left, or we're going to overtime. And by the way, non-releasable penalty. You're going to start overtime, man up.
Yeah, I think it was that was a horrible call on his part. And again, you get like aggressive decision. If he doubles and gets the ball back, they go down and score. Then we're having a different conversation. We're probably still going to touch on that, but at the end of the day, I think that was a very poor decision. And I'd like to know a little bit more, have context on are they practicing that every day in practice? You just don't know. I don't know that. We need like an insider to Utah. Yeah, I doubt it too.
I doubt it.
Yeah.
And, so Delaware scores, goes up by 1. Not over. We go back to the face-off X. Kind of chaos ensues. Ryan Stein ends up out of a kind of chaotic situation with a pretty decent step down. He takes the shot. So no timeout. So Utah picks up a ground ball. Again, he likes not to call a timeout. I kind of get it here. It was unsettled. They had a really good look. Stein's like wide open, step down, save. Delaware clears it. Again, turnover. Ball's coming back the other way. Cody Hart catches it in the middle of the field. He crosses midline with about 12 seconds left and no numbers advantage. And you could tell Hartsey watching him, he was gassed. So he's like one of their most athletic midfielders, and he's running at a short pole. And part of me is like, okay, 12 seconds, like maybe you just say that's my guy. He's in the open field, but you can see he has no intention of dodging. He kind of peels off and throws it over to attackman, and they get a really shitty look. I don't even think they get a ball on cage at the end of the game. Again, I'm sitting there watching, going, call a timeout. You're man up. Even if there's 6 seconds left and you're man up, you can, you should be able to run a quick hitter and at worst get a 14, 13-yard step down with one of your better shooters. So he ends the game and he goes home and he's got 2 timeouts in his pocket. He's giving them as treats to his dogs. Here you go, pups. I brought you 2 timeouts home to chew on.
Yeah.
I just think it's a I praised him last week for his teams. They play fast and they kind of do have a little bit of a commitment to this style, double aggressive. But I just think a couple of really strange decisions in a game that you could win. You elect to double team when you don't need to, and then you elect to not use timeouts in a couple situations where you're man up and you could draw something up. Yeah, I got questions.
Yeah,
I got questions. I think Utah lets one slip away that they probably could or maybe even should have won.
Yeah, and schedule doesn't get easier for them. And you look at the freshman. I think last week he had 5 or 6 goals. McNamara was 0-2, and then Cody Hart, who you just touched on, 4 goals, 1 assist against Ohio State, held goose eggs across the board on that. So that's something to look at. Obviously, those guys stepped up big at Ohio State. That that's a huge performance. And then coming to Delaware, I don't know if DeLuca keyed in on those two and kind of try to take him out of the game. But yeah, that was just mismanaged, and I'm sure McMinn's done a great job with that program, and I think he's going to learn from that and adjust, but maybe not. We'll see. But yeah, like you said, taking 2 timeouts there, you're man up. Call a timeout. Like, what the heck's Delaware going to come out in? They pull their goalie and double you? Like, I don't think so. So it's like, yeah, interesting.
Not good. So before we look ahead, and the only other thing on, it was Syracuse on Friday night, ends up being 13-5, but they roll Vermont. Joey Spalina with 10 points. Not bad in a 13-5 win. So again, you've heard it from me. I'm so in on Syracuse, and I had a moment. I made a note of my phone. Burt Whistle to Spalina to Deer for a goal. Like, that's Syracuse lacrosse.
Yep.
I don't need to hear anything else. A kid named Burt Whistle throws the ball to a kid from Long Island named Joey Spalina, who throws it to a native with the last name Deer, and they score a goal. Like, if that isn't Syracuse's back, I don't know what is, because that's just the most New York. I don't know where the kid Burt Whistle's from, but what a elite name.
Burt Whistle. He can't like he might be from Dundalk. I bet he's from Dundalk. I'll look it up.
If your name is Burt Whistle, you went to public school, and you're playing at Cuse.
And your mom did not carry your gear bag when you were in middle school.
Exactly. And then you're throwing the ball to anybody from Long Island, and I'm going to touch on this later, but like, if you have a first name that ends in Y and a last name that ends in A, and you're from Long Island, you can play lacrosse for my team, period.
Yeah.
Like, so, you got Burt Whistle, a Joey Spalina, and then you got, Deer with the finish. Like, it's just such a pure Syracuse combination. We've talked about it over and over. I watching Billy Dwan in this game, like, I love him.
Yeah,
I think
he's awesome.
I think he's great on defense. So we are going to find out. So let's use that to move into anything else before, because I think it's a good transition into the upcoming slate of games and one that I'm definitely circling this week.
I'll just touch on, something for Cuse to kind of, probably an area of focus for them heading into Towson, Maryland this week is just they were man down 6 times in that Vermont game. So they got to kind of.
I like that.
I like it too. Billy Dwan had 2 penalties in there, but
I bet Burt Whistle had 1 or 2 also.
But Dwan and Figueres, the two defensemen, they're holding that defensive unit down. Their goalie's playing great. And then Syracuse's LSM Kaczynski, 4 caused turnovers. He's creating havoc in the midfield. So their defense is solid. A lot of what we're talking about is obviously the Cuse offense, right? They have their swagger back. This is reminding me of the Cuse of old, just like throwing behind the back passes, just catching it one-handed. The swagger is back in Cuse. But the one that I have circled is Maryland Cuse at Maryland. So that'll be a good one. Yeah,
no doubt. So we'll find out, right? Because you remember this game last year. I don't even remember who won it. I just remember Ajax puts the clamps on Spalina, and it was a little bit of a like slow your roll moment on Syracuse.
And that was a weird game because it looked like they were ISOing Spalina with no picks, which was kind of bizarre to watch. And they were 0-2 against top 20 opponents last year. So that'll be. I'm sure they're going to be looking a little different heading into Maryland this week.
Yeah, so. And by the way, Cuse plays Towson tonight. So like, it's kind of like a ramp up. I mean, we've seen like Towson's good and it's a tough win. And again, for some reason, Towson always plays these early week games.
Trying to catch a midweek, just like Monday.
They're kind
of
a shitty
were they
team
drinking
to play
last night?
midweek. Like, again, talk about a lot. Like, I'm a bunch of 4.0 students at Towson, so they're not, you're not worried about. We're studying on the night before the game. Like, Towson's a tough team to play midweek, and we saw it with Hopkins, and now Syracuse. And you're thinking ahead to Maryland. That's a little bit of a trap game. I think Syracuse will win and win comfortably, and I think it'll be good for them to see maybe a little bit of stiffer competition before they have to go in and play Maryland.
Also, Super Bowl Sunday yesterday, like. Did Burt Whistle? I mean, he seems like a guy that might be out drinking. I don't know.
That could be a concern for Towson as well, though.
So that could be a concern for Towson as well.
We might be on even.
Might be a good game then.
There. Yeah, exactly. The Bills nor the Ravens were in the Super Bowl, so that bodes well for both groups there. That maybe there wasn't that much to get excited about. So we got Towson Cuse tonight on Monday. Tonight is we're talking here. I don't know when we'll get this out, but looking ahead, Syracuse, Maryland will be the game of the weekend for sure. Really excited to watch that. Excited to see if all the excitement around Syracuse is legit, and if some of my concern around Maryland and their offense, Maryland is Maryland, and until they don't make a Final Four run, it's probably not smart to pick against them.
Yep.
I like Syracuse in that game. A couple of other big storylines for me. I think this is the first slate that I'm like looking at really excited. There's a lot of really interesting, really good games. Ivy League is back, so we'll get our first look at Cornell, who plays Lehigh. We'll get our first look at Harvard, Penn, Georgetown, a top 15 matchup, a top 20 matchup there. So, welcome back to the Ivy League. And then Notre Dame also is back this week. So some of the kind of sleeping giants of Final Four contenders who we haven't gotten to see yet this season will break through. What are you looking for, Hartsey, in this upcoming week of games? What are you most excited about?
Obviously you'd already touched on it, but Princeton, for me, I think is going to make a run in 2025. They have returned their entire first midfield line, their attack unit. Obviously, Coulter Mackessy's on the Torton watch list, and then you got Nate Kabiri, Chad Palumbo. Those guys are,
and they open with Penn State, by the way.
Yep.
Another real top 10 matchup right off the bat.
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to that. I mean, Jim Mitchell, I think he's one of the best offensive coordinators in the country, so that offense is going to be high-powered, fun to watch this year, and we'll get to see them against that. So looking forward to that. Michael Bath, the guy I'm big on, senior LSM for Princeton, 6'1", 200 pounds. He's due for a breakout year. He had 26 college turnovers, 39 GBs in 2024. But I talked to Coach Mitchell a little bit. They're big on this guy. It sounds like he's going to have a breakout year, so I'm really looking forward. We're the Overhead Podcast. Like, talk about some defensemen here, highlight some D guys. One big question mark for them, though, is going to be the goalie in between the pipes. They lost their goaltender to UNC, who we saw week one was very good. That's going to be a question mark for them. So watch that early in the game. Is their goaltender? I don't even know who it is, but obviously that's a big hole. He was on the Torton watch list last year, and now he's gone. He's at UNC, so that'll be a big thing to watch coming through there or into that game. Penn State, obviously, we know Matt Trainer. He had 4 goals, 2 assists week one. So did Kyle Lehman, 2 goals, 1 assist. So it'll be a good game. It's a tough test, but I think Princeton, their defense, offense, everything, all their key pieces come back. So they're going to be a fun unit to watch this year, and I think they can make a run. But as I said, goalie play will be interesting, very interesting to see. Yale. I think Yale is going to be very good. They had 2 attackmen that did not play last year. Leo Johnson, 40 goals, 22 assists in 23. Chris Lyons, 62 goals, 12 assists in 2023. I have a question for you. So both these kids, Leo Johnston, Chris Lyons, they are, they're going into their 3rd year here at Yale. They're both rumored, both are going to University of Maryland next year. Mm-hmm. If you are at Loyola and you have 2 of your starting attackmen, your best attackmen, are going to leave to go to University of Maryland, and you know that, maybe they should have kept it to themselves, but it seems like it's out there now. I've been seeing it everywhere. It sounds like they're going to Maryland next year. What does that –
is that because eligibility at Ivy is up?
I don't know. So they're redshirt. They've only played 2 years at Yale. They redshirted, and then this would be their 4th.
Only – right, at the Ivy League schools, you can only – be there 4 years.
Okay. The redshirt year counts to that?
I don't know, Kyle. I'm not a mathematician.
Let's just say it wasn't. Let's just say they can stay at Yale. What are your thoughts
if they can stay at Yale, that makes absolutely no sense. Yeah. And like my brain doesn't even why would that even be a thing? If they can stay there, why would they have announced that they're leaving? I would be willing to venture. We need to do our homework. I would be willing to venture that they can't stay there. In which case, I don't think it's that. Yeah. It's a problem. Like if you don't have the option to come back and play for us, great. Go, have fun. I do remember Coach Toomey was so fucking annoyed with me and Hawk and some of our guys when we got drafted to the MLL before our senior seasons. And a couple of us were talking about it or posting about it. He's like, "What the fuck, Rat? I don't give a fuck about the kids." Maybe there's some of that in that locker room of don't be thinking ahead to what it's going to be like in College Park, all that good stuff. But I would hope it's a top 10 team. to your point, a chance to, go on a run and win a championship. I would hope that they're, able to just kind of say, hey, this is next year. And again, it's a different scenario if coming back to Yale were an option. So maybe we have a follow-up on this and we can get some intel to better understand that.
But 130 points missing from Yale's roster comes back. So that's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, it is. So and the Ivy League is awesome. I mean, Ivy League lacrosse, like there's so many good teams. You look at like all of them really. I mean, minus Dartmouth, but even Dartmouth was getting frisky, recently. It's just fun to watch and see who can position to be the Final Four, because some really good Ivy League teams going to be left out of the tournament probably too. Right. Like at the end of the day, the gap between those teams isn't that big. So it's one of the conference battles that's really fun to watch. And obviously with Cornell, like Kirst, it's going to be, Kirst is one of the best players in the country. It'll be exciting to see what he can do this year coming out. So lots of big games this week. I think this will be a week, Kyle, where we'll start to be able to kind of, we'll start to be able to identify some of the true contenders versus pretenders. I think with the Ivy League, like you look at Princeton, Penn State, it's game 1 for Princeton. So probably still in don't overreact mode. I think we got to give them a couple of weeks, these Ivy teams, to catch up to some of these other teams that, have been playing games and might be finding their rhythm a little bit. But I think it'll be the first kind of week of the college lacrosse season where we can get together next week, and we'll probably have a little bit of a clearer picture over at least, early season, who the true contenders are and who are the teams that, that look like they're ready to play. I think we'll learn a lot about Maryland, when they play against Cuse, and Hopkins plays Loyola again, a game they should win, but another chance to lose. I mean, I'll just keep saying it about them. If they're now 4-0 and it's and it's Towson, Loyola, Georgetown, and Denver, they're going to keep kind of demanding my respect as badly as I don't want to give it to them. Yeah. So anything else next week, Kyle, before we wrap up with a couple of things here?
Nope. I'm good.
So as I was talking about Burt Whistle, Spallina, Deere, some of these names on Syracuse, and it got me thinking a little bit about like, if I were a college coach, how would I build my roster? Where would I go recruit? Because I just think of Syracuse and it's like, again, give me a couple guys off the res, give me a couple Canadian, definitely some upstate flavor, and then grab a few Long Island boys. Like, that's how you build a team at Syracuse to win. And I think that's what Gary Gate, is doing a really good job of right now. If I'm building a team from scratch, how would I build it? So I spent some time thinking about this. I put it together. I'll tell you how I'm, building my roster based on town. And I'd love to hear your take or where I'm missing or where I'm off here. So the first position, the attack position, the guys that are going to score goals. I already referenced this. So give me first name ends in Y, last name ends with a vowel. All 3 attackmen. So I want Joey, Tommy, I want Nikki on my attack. I want Italian last names, for all of them. I want one from Smithtown, one from East Setauket, and one from Massapequa, Long Island. So I'm going 3 Long Island guys at attack, all with first names that end in Y. Again, it could be Tommy, it could be Joey. They could have a version, but the name ends in Y. The first name, the last name ends with a vowel. From my starting attack, for my midfield, this is where now I'm going to venture out a little bit. First, give me a midi from Charlotte, North Carolina. This kid also plays football. Okay, so this is a kid from Charlotte. He's playing probably corner, maybe safety on the football team, and he's also going to be a first line midi for me on the lacrosse team. He's just going to be a solid, disciplined Southern sweet tea drinking Southern boy, 2-sport athlete, first line midfield. Second, I'm going Walpole, Massachusetts. All right. I want a tough masshole on my first line midfield. I want a public school Massachusetts kid from Walpole. Drinking beers at the Raven, probably in high school there in Walpole. Again, you're going to have just some grit and some toughness. Massachusetts kids always play hard. Walpole, Massachusetts. And then my third midi, Atlanta, Georgia. Okay. Again, I'm going back to the South. for my midfielders. Atlanta is a city, much like Charlotte, where you now it's established in lacrosse where you get this like these really athletic football players who also are skilled. Like it's not just a D-Midi state anymore. It's there's a lot of skill coming out of the South. So Charlotte, North Carolina, Walpole, Massachusetts, Atlanta, Georgia. That's my first line O-Middies running out there with the Long Island boys, right? They're going out there with Smithtown, Setauket, and Massapequa. For my rope unit, for my LSM, I'm going to Orlando, Florida. So it's the same idea. Take me to the South, okay? Give me an LSM in Florida. He's going to be more skilled than you probably expect. He's going to play basketball as well, okay, as lacrosse, and probably, got recruited by the football coach to come out senior year also. For my face-off guy, Morristown, New Jersey, I think is where they I think they have actually a little garden there where they grow face-off guys in Morristown, New Jersey. So I'll just go to that go to the garden, pick a face-off guy, throw him in the mix. My short stick D-Middies, one of them, I'm going to go Cherry Hill, New Jersey. I like a Jersey kid at D-Midi. He probably wears socks up to his knees, right? He probably wears white socks to his knees and black cleats. He has bad tilt.
Spatted? Are they spatted?
Probably spatted. In South Jersey, you get a little. Cherry Hill's like a Philly suburb, so you get a little Jersey grit mixed with a little, Philly grit. That's good. My second short stick D-Midi, Amherst, Massachusetts. Okay, he missed last season because he failed a drug test for smoking some pot. All right, my other D-Midi, he's gonna have some hippie vibes. He's gonna be super chill, way more athletic than his personality lets on. You mix him with that gritty New Jersey, combo there at D-Midi. The kid from Amherst is going to be the one probably scoring some goals from the D-Midi position as well. Go to my defense. Okay. On defense, I'm going to have one defenseman that's from the beaches, Toronto. Okay. Ontario. So everybody wants to talk about offensive players from Canada. Give me an inside guy on defense from Toronto. I need somebody that can cover the crease, that can win a fight, right? That can bring some toughness to the defense. Second, I'm going to go to West Jenny, okay, upstate New York for my next defenseman. He's going to have helmet on, mouthpiece in on the bus ride to the game. Okay, he's not going to be a big talker. He's probably going to be your number one guy there on that defense. And then my last defenseman, I'll go to Downingtown, Philadelphia. Okay, outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. There's a lineage of great defensemen that come outside of Philly. Again, you get a good mix of toughness and lacrosse IQ. And then for my goalie, Hartsey, I'm going back to Long Island. We're going to go to Cold Spring Harbor, Long Island. I'm going to grab a goalie from Long Island, and that's going to round out my lineup. Any holes?
I mean, you just didn't mention anyone from Maryland, Baltimore. What's going on there? I know you just had this teed up. You just triggered me, so I know you're prepared to respond. So go for it.
I thought about. Look, I considered putting a Gilman kid on my attack. I've been on the record. I like Sam King at Harvard. It's not Baltimore's year right now. It's been a tough year in Baltimore, and I just don't know if I'm seeing the level out of Baltimore that I once saw. I think, again, if I was going to go to Maryland, I was leaning more towards a place like Dundalk, right, for somebody, or even somebody maybe out of Hereford High School, right, and get out in Baltimore County a little bit. Gilman, BL, Calvert Hall, McDonough, it's a lot of great players. I think ultimately, Kyle, for my team, I'm probably going to see a lot of those kids in the Final Four with this team. But for my team, I just decided to go with Long Island as where I like to get my guys. It's just personal preference. What do you think?
It's not a bad place to go get your guys. I mean, they're proven. They're proven. So I don't know what it was for you for Baltimore. I don't know if it was the Gilman murderer or Lamar Jackson or what's going on, but yeah, it's free country. You can do what you want.
It's a proud lacrosse city, but again, it's my team. I get to build it, and
we'll have to
I'm
do
not
this
taking
again.
Any feedback.
We'll have to do this again, and then just name some names. Like it can be anybody from like any era. That'd be cool to see.
Yeah, we could probably put together a pretty good team. So I think that's it for this week of Over the Head. Kyle, as always, shout out to Mills, producer Mills, getting this stuff turned around pretty quickly. Next week we will have some sixes. I think will be fun to break down some of those games, and then obviously we talked about a big college lacrosse slate, so we'll be coming back with that, and I don't know, maybe we'll get organized and bring a guest on here.
Yeah, we also got to do a Q&A. Get some we're getting some following now, so we'll definitely do a Q&A with the followers next week for sure. I know we said that the week prior, but we'll definitely do that next week, and we should have a guest on in the next 2 episodes. So thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Peace.